What's up YouTube? James Comics here. In 2020, I made a video ranking my top 10 Nintendo Switch games at the time. And with the Switch library constantly expanding, I decided to make an updated ranking as of September 2022. My opinions have changed a bit since then, and I have also played more Switch exclusives since then. Before we start though, like and subscribe for more Switch content, and here are the most notable games that will be excluded from this list for one reason or another. First off, I haven't finished Luigi's Mansion 3. I liked what I played, but I just fell out of it and haven't picked it up yet. Second, I haven't played Fire Emblem Free Houses or Yoshi's Crafted World, even though I own both, because regardless of how it looks, I have a life outside of video games, so I don't have time to play everything. Third, I haven't played any Xenoblade Chronicles games, so 2 and 3 won't be here. Fourth, I haven't played the recently released Splatoon 3, even though I will eventually. Fifth, I'm a staunch hater of the Pokemon franchise, therefore I haven't played any of the Switch entries. I only played one entry ever, Pokemon X and Y. And sixth, the ports on the Switch from the Wii U aren't exclusives, so I won't include them. Neither are ports from other consoles. So no original Hyrule Warriors, Pikmin 3, Bayonetta 2, Rayman Legends, etc. However, from the ground up remakes will be included though. So with that out of the way, here are my top 10 Nintendo Switch games and a couple of honorable mentions. Coming in number 10, we have Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Before playing this game, I loathed the Rabbids. I found them to be crass and disgusting creatures that were basically minions but more annoying to a fault. However, when paired with the world of Super Mario and an amazing tactical RPG gameplay style, the Rabbids redeemed themselves in my eyes. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is a game that you either love or hate, and I personally fall in the former. The cutscenes in this game are beautiful, especially for an early Switch title. The character designs for the fusions between Mario characters and Rabbids are superb, especially my boy Rabbid Kong. The humor in this game never over-descended into potty humor, and stayed consistently entertaining. The bosses were all unique, with Bowser Jr.'s boss fight giving me the most trouble. And to boot, this game is chock full of content, collectibles, and Easter eggs, referencing the greater Mario franchise. While this game's combat system didn't work for some, I enjoyed how complex it was while still remaining graspable. Overall, this game was an unexpected thrill ride, and I can't wait for the sequel to release next month. In ninth place, we have Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I never played the original Hyrule Warriors or any Warriors games before this one, and it has gotten me more interested in that genre. If you saw my review of Age of Calamity, you'd know that the best part of the game was its story. It found a way to tell the backstory of Breath of the Wild while adding new twists and turns into it. If you were to take all of the cutscenes and watch them in a row, you'd have an entire Zelda movie full of action, character development, and tragedy. The gameplay is typical for a Warriors game, but with the addition of the runes and the diverse skill sets of the different characters, it barely overstays its welcome unless you go for the 100% like I did. With all of this in mind, I haven't even mentioned Impa, Princess Zelda, and Astor. These three characters stuck out above the rest in the story. Impa was just so funny, especially with her unyielding annoyance at Terraco. Astor was a cool non-Ganon villain for the game, and I wish we got more of him. And finally, Princess Zelda was given so much personality and an actual character arc in this game. Plus, her relationship with Link was sweet like it was in Breath of the Wild. I absolutely adore Age of Calamity, and the fact that it's in 9th place goes to show how awesome the rest of these games are. In 8th place, we have Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I have been a loyal Kirby fan since early elementary school, when my friend Tomas introduced me to Kirby Triple Deluxe. Needless to say, when the Switch rolled around, I was very disappointed by Kirby Star Allies. I didn't hate it, but it was unoriginal and bland. However, we still got a Kirby masterpiece on the Switch 4 years after Star Allies, with Kirby and the Forgotten Land. This game is essentially the Kirby universe and Super Mario 3D World fused together, and in many ways it improved upon aspects of both. We get more Kirby lore here, with the Forgotten Lands tied to Planet Popstar, development for King Dedede, and as expected with a Kirby game, a universe-destroying main villain. The levels here are more open and feature more layered objectives than Mario 3D World, with the many Waddle Dee challenges in every stage, providing instant replay value and keeping the player on their toes. The addition of upgrades for copy abilities was genius, and added another layer of depth to this game. Additionally, the post-game here is where the game really shines, with a revamped version of old levels, and the usual Kirby game Colosseums. Kirby also controls extremely well here. The only real flaw of this game was its length, but I'd much rather have a game that is too short over a game that is too long. go check out my review of this game on my channel. In 7th place is Super Mario Odyssey. While Kirby and the Forgotten Land is an amazing 3D platformer, Super Mario Odyssey surpasses it by a long shot and remains the best 3D platformer on the Switch, at least until Donkey Kong gives it a swing. During my previous ranking of Switch games, I wasn't that into Mario Odyssey because of how frustrating the final moons of the game were and how mundane collecting all of the moons felt. Now, I feel like my disdain for it has died down and I've started to appreciate just how awesome the main campaign was. The story of Super Mario Odyssey is your typical Mario story, with Bowser kidnapping Princess Peach. But this time around, he really plans on marrying her, so he's on a trip around the world collecting items for his grand wedding on the moon. Already, the game's premise sets up the many locations Mario will be heading to, with my favorites being the gorgeous Wooded Kingdom, the metropolitan New Donk City, and the feudal Japanese Bowser's Kingdom. Not only are the different locations in this game visually stunning, especially for an early Switch title, but they are packed to the brim with secrets to discover and things to collect. The new marketplace system for normal coins and purple coins gives coin collecting a whole new meaning in this Mario game, with the costumes and stickers that Mario unlocks keeping the player feeling like their efforts are always being rewarded. As aforementioned, the post-game is such a pain, but it is still fun at times and provides the hardcore challenge that many older Mario fans look for in a game like this. To be fair, once I did 100% the game, I felt a satisfaction like no other Mario game has provided, which is saying a lot. While a very flawed game, Super Mario Odyssey is a gem on the Switch, and will likely go down as a 3D platforming classic. In 6th, we have Super Mario Maker 2. While I love 3D Mario, I will always have more of a soft spot for 2D Mario. Super Mario Maker 2 is one of the few games that I was literally addicted to. I remember spending the post-Christmas season of 2019 glued to my Switch and my Switch Lite, playing through Mario Maker 2 until my retinas broke. I wouldn't advise doing so of any games because your retinas are kind of important. This game's biggest draw for me was its original campaign, which was a welcome addition, giving it more value than the Wii U original. These developer levels were made to spark creativity in players, and the framing device for these levels, collecting coins to rebuild Peach's castle, is a smart way to make players feel like they're making progress as they grind through these cleverly made stages. Outside of the story mode, this game brought back the 4 themes from the first game for players to design levels with, as well as a new theme, Super Mario 3D World. This was admittedly the weakest of the themes, but the individual items it offered designers like Clear Pipes and Meowser were awesome in their own way. The Endless Challenge was a step down from the first Mario Maker's 100 Mario Challenge, because of just how pointless it felt. And in a similar vein, the removal of amiibo costumes is just baffling to me, and in many ways makes the first Mario Maker better. But still, this game did so much right, and the free additions added later on, such as the Master Sword of Link and the World Builder, make it a game that I regard dearly. In 5th place is Metroid Dread. Nintendo started an entire genre of the original Metroid, the Metroidvania. The Switch is now home to tons of Metroidvanias, like Hollow Knight and SteamWorld Dig, but none of them compare, at least in my opinion, to the franchise that started it all. The last 2D Metroid Fusion had come out in 2002. Metroid Prime 4 was stuck in development hell, and Nintendo seemed to care very little about the franchise. But in the summer of 2021, in the E3 Direct, Metroid Dread was revealed, and it still feels so unreal. This game legitimately does not deserve to exist. The graphical design of this game is one of its defining features to me. The dark, menacing colors contrasting with the bright lights occasionally emitted from certain objects like molten lava, Samus' suit, or the Emmys helps this game establish a haunting, dreadful, pun intended, atmosphere. Speaking of the Emmys, these 7 robots become the player's nightmare throughout the course of this game, and the thrill of taking them out one by one truly empowers the player and gives them the confidence to keep trekking this unforgiving planet. Samus herself is as hardcore as she's ever been, mercilessly decimating hundreds of hostile aliens, and her new blue and white suit is one of her best. The non-Emmy bosses in this game are also expertly designed, with villains like Kraid and Ravenby having such macabre designs. On the note of Ravenby, he is arguably the best final boss in this series, and his fight truly tests everything you've learned in this game so far. Plus, the free update adding one-hit death mode and a boss rush was just a cherry on top. If Metroid Prime 4 is anything like Metroid Dread, it will certainly be a masterpiece. In 4th place is Splatoon 2. Splatoon 2 is an improvement on the first game in every conceivable way. The improved graphics on the Switch are extremely apparent and trump the Wii U version. The story this time around is about the same, but with an evil version of Callie, there's an extra layer to it. The new Clan Blitz ranked mode is loads of fun, but of course, the biggest addition to this game was Salmon Run, and it is my favorite Splatoon mode. I am generally more into player versus environment than player versus player online games, so the inclusion of a PvE mode really helped make this one of my favorite Nintendo Switch games ever. Possibly one of my favorite Nintendo games ever. While the base game is amazing as I just detailed, it's really Octo Expansion that pushes it to its limit. The Octo Expansion story is so mysterious, and its levels are noticeably harder than the base game. The shock at realizing what you are building as you beat every boss in the expansion is really horrific, especially for a Nintendo game. And the last section of the expansion that heavily features stealth is the best that the single player of Splatoon has ever been. The hidden agent-free boss fight is also one of the hardest I've ever experienced, and beating him was so satisfying. This whole game is just such a fun package, and Splatoon 3 has a lot to live up to. Breaking into our top 3 is Astral Chain. Probably the most niche game on this list, Astral Chain was such an out-of-left-field surprise for me. It was an under-the-radar release in 2019, even though it still managed to sell 1 million units and people don't talk about it nearly as much as they should. The story of this game plays out like an anime featuring elements of cop and sci-fi movies. The combat is so slick, and controlling 2 characters at the same time with 1 controller works surprisingly better than you'd think. The 5 types of legions that the player can control are all unique and fun to utilize, with the Arm and Beast legions being my favorites. Each of them offers up their own strengths and weaknesses, and none of them feel significantly worse than the others. The platforming of this game worked for me, even though many people believe it is a fault of this game, and the mini-games, besides a few, like the truck moving one, are really fun and offer a nice break from the main campaign. The game's characters are also intriguing and expressive, most notably Lappy, but the main protagonist is bland, a fault of the customization, which is only noticeable because of how good the rest of the characters are. The art style of this game is also breathtaking, and looks how I'd want the next F-Zero to look. It's criminal how little this game gets brought up in best Switch game conversations, because it would be my number 1 game for almost any other console, but the Switch has 2 masterpieces that surpass it. In second place, possibly surprising you guys, is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is one of the best games ever made, and I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. There isn't much for me to say about this game that hasn't been said already, so I'll keep it brief. This game redefines the idea of an open world game, with Hyrule feeling like an actual lived-in world. The player has the freedom to play the game however they want and fight Ganon whenever they want. The characters are all charming, especially the 4 champions. The world is a bit empty in terms of people. I'd like to see it populate Hyrule and Tears of the Kingdom, but it just adds to the natural focus of the game. It is called Breath of the Wild after all. Completing the shrines and collecting the Korok seeds are a hassle, but they aren't required to enjoy the game the way the developers wanted you to. Technically speaking, this is a Wii U game, but it was a cross-gen release, so I'm counting it as a Switch game, and at that, it's one of the best, but there is one game that I enjoy more than it. Before we get to our number 1 pick, here are a few honorable mentions. A game that just missed the top 10 was The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake. This game was so good that I played through it 3 times in a row, but the puzzles are still very cryptic, and I prefer A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. Marvel Ultimate Alliance Free The Black Order is very underappreciated. As a Marvel fan, I love the selection of characters from all over the Marvel universe, including the X-Men and Inhumans. Completion of this game was repulsing, as you had to go through the story over and over again to get costumes and currency. Paper Mario The Origami King was not the return to form that many expected it to be, but I still loved it, and as the only Paper Mario I played besides Sticker Star, it was a masterpiece compared to that. The completion of this game is also extremely fun, possibly the best completion experience on the Switch, dare I say. The writing is also top notch, and the ring combat got boring fast, but didn't bother me all too much. Finally, Golf Story is one of the only indie games completely exclusive to the Nintendo Switch, and it was very heartfelt and hilarious. The fact that the indie golf game, a sport that I don't like, made my honorable mentions, while Mario Tennis Aces and Mario Strikers Battle League, both featuring my favorite sports, didn't even make the honorable mentions, shows just how well made this game was. And with that being said, my number 1 game on the Nintendo Switch as of September 2022 is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is one of my favorite games of all time, and for good reason. The gameplay is more refined than it's ever been, with the controls being extremely tight and the characters all feeling amazing to play as. The number of fighters, stages, and spirits in this game is unreal. The story mode, World of Light, isn't as good as Brawl's Subspace Emissary, but it's still really fun and creative in its own right. The Spirit board is a guilty pleasure of mine, as I still play it even though I've collected all of the game's spirits. The local multiplayer is as good as Smash has ever been, and I am personally a pro at it. The online is great for a Nintendo game, with the occasional laggy match. Both Fighters Pass DLC packs only added to this game, and I'm honestly happy that the updates have stopped, so that this game can just remain a cemented triumph in gaming history. So that's my official ranking of Nintendo Switch exclusive games as of September 2022. I know that this list will change with Tears of the Kingdom, Metroid Prime 4, and Pikmin 4, and also Splatoon 3 and other already released games when I get around to them. I know that my exclusion of Animal Crossing will anger at least one person, but hey, that's my opinion. Anywho, I'll definitely make at least one more top 10 Switch games video while the Switch is still a modern console. I have some short videos about my thoughts on the stuff announced in the Nintendo Direct we just got, so be on the lookout for all of those videos soon. JM Comics, out.